Hello and welcome back to Apache Camel tutorial. Today we'll be focusing on testing. Our objective, we'll try to look at Camel test kit, and as other videos it's fully hands-on, so we'll be doing a big great workshop, and in that workshop we'll be looking at how to unit test your Camel routes. We will also try to use mocks, okay, and we'll try to do some advanced testing using AdviceWith. Testing starts with unit tests, right? And a good way to perform unit testing on a Camel application is to start the application, okay? Then send a message. And once the message has been sent, you verify, you check the expectation you had set on your test, whether or not those expectations are met. This is how the Camel test kit is used for testing. Camel provides rich facilities for testing your projects using the Camel test kit. This kit is used heavily for testing the Camel itself. Yes, Camel itself is using their own written framework for testing the code which they are shipping to us. Okay, the Camel test jar is the core test module that includes the JUnit extension as a number of classes on top of JUnit that makes unit testing with Apache much easier. The Camel test jar can be used for testing standalone Camel application. Testing Camel in other environments requires specialized Camel test module. For OSGI blueprint testing, you should use Camel test blueprint. For CDI testing, use camel-test-CDI. And for Camel with Spring, use Camel test Spring. The Camel test kit uses the mock component from Camel core. And you are already familiar with producer template and Fluent producer template that makes it easy to send messages to your Camel routes. All right. So this is Camel core, which basically includes mock component and producer template, just as I said just now. Okay, let's move on and let's just focus on the Camel test to begin with, okay, which includes all the JUnit extension, which I just said. So there are 9 classes in a small jar file, which is called camel test.jar, which ships with Camel. Out of those 9 classes are 3 or 4 that are intended to be used by end users such as us, okay, and those classes are called test support, the Camel test support, language support, and exchange support. Okay, so where are those classes? Let's have a quick look. If I take you back to our IntelliJ, which is over here, okay, and I believe the text size is good enough. All right, so if I take you over here, so in this package called Camel test JUnit, this is JUnit 5 by the way, okay, it has all these classes: Camel test support, it has test support, language test support, exchange test support. There are few factory classes, some other utility classes which we don't have to use it. All right, let's close this thing. So come back to our presentation once again. So as I said, Camel test comes in a very small jar which has all these nice utility classes. So what we will be doing today is we'll be using the class called Camel test support. Camel test support is a utility class which has several utility methods such as template. It also gives you the Camel context, and there are various other methods in that class which you can use to test your existing or just brand new routes, okay, which you are about to publish to your customer. So what we can do is we can go back to our IntelliJ and let's try to write our very first unit test, okay. And how do we do that? So I was just playing over here and I wrote a class called hello root JUnit test. It needs to extend Camel test support class, which we were talking earlier. So if you click on this Camel test support, you will see there is a little documentation. It's saying a useful base class which creates a Camel context with some roots along with a producer template for use in the test case. Do not use this class for Spring Boot testing. For Spring Boot testing, you should be using test support, okay, which we saw earlier. That's the important bit to know here. But right now my focus is basically, you know, on the unit testing and the mock testing using Camel test support. So when you extend Camel test support, one thing you have to do is you have to override this method called create root builder, and when you do that, you have to return a root builder. So what I have done over here is, let's say I wanted to test that whether or not if I had a root called direct greeting, whether or not can I send a message to that particular root. So what I did over here, I defined a brand new root called direct greeting, and the intention is as soon as a message lands on this particular root, I just want to print it, the entire body over here. Okay, so this is how I like to start. After that, I have written a public test method over here, and then what I'm simply doing is I'm using template, which is again, you know, coming from you don't have to create producer template or any other template. It already provided by this particular class called Camel test support. This is really cool stuff, right? It literally, you know, reduces all the boilerplate plus all the injection or construction you may have to do in order to get all these, you know, context plus templates, etc. So what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to say template send body to this particular endpoint called direct greeting, and I like to send a message called team. Okay, I would like to send it one more message to the same endpoint, maybe just me. Okay, it has no meaning at the moment because we'll be building some use cases around it, right? So I have now written my test. It's very simple, and I'm just going to execute this particular test. There you are. Okay, and I'm expecting, if I do team, yeah, as you can see, team has been printed and me has been printed because these are the two messages which I sent. Okay, let's say we managed to test it, everything is good. We like to probably copy paste this logic over here into a main root class. Okay, so you can do that. So what I did, let's open hello root. Okay, so this is the root which we created in previous videos. So what this root does, it has from direct greeting, as you saw earlier, it has ID, and it simply prints body first. It says hello, okay, and it prints whatever you're sending to it, and then it has little bit of a condition over here, and it says, okay, if message contains team, I like to print I like working with teams. If it does not see message team but it sees me or anything else, it prints something like solo fighter. Okay, that's as good as this. Okay, and after that we are simply finishing with greeting, and then we are simply saying bye body. Make sense? Now, how do I make use of existing root which is sitting in another file? What I simply need to do is I'm gonna get rid of all this, you know, the boilerplate which we wrote earlier to test here, and I'm going to simply replace that with hello root. Okay, because if you notice, hello root extends a class called root builder. This is how you build your camel roots, correct? So I am able to simply say return existing root over here in this overridden method. Now if I test or execute my unit test, you will notice in the log file, okay, let's go to our log. Towards the bottom, okay, there it is, right? First time when I sent a message called team, it's saying hello me. Oh no, sorry, it's saying hello team, I like working with teams, by team. That's exactly the logic which we have over there. When I sent another message, it said hello me, solo fighter, by me. Good stuff. So what we have done just now, we have unit tested our existing root, as well as we try to create a brand new root just to, you know, when you're beginning your journey of creating roots, you just want to quickly test it by sending some message. You can quickly play around it. Once you're happy, you can, you know, either copy paste to another root or into an XML file or give it to your another team. All right, after that, what we did, we try to use existing route by sending the message to it. At this point, you must be wondering, how do I verify that the content which I have sent to my route meets all the expectations, whether or not, because automatically you like to test, okay, when I'm sending a message, it's reaching once or twice, okay, it has some content to it. This is where mock comes. So Camel provides another set of libraries called mock. As you noticed in the previous slide, it comes under Camel core. Okay, so let's try to make a use of mock in the next test. So we can leave this particular class over here, and we can open another Java class which I have just created, and as you can see, it's empty at the moment. Let's just copy paste this stuff over here. Let's just copy paste, and what we can do over here is we can go back to our because at the moment I'm testing it. There is a little limitation over here, because if I try to use mock, I need to direct my routes content, or what we call producer. It should be matching to a mock endpoint. Okay, at the moment we'll just define a new route, okay, which will be saying from greeting, and we will be writing to a mock endpoint. Later on I'll tell you how to make use of existing route which has, like, start to finish, i.e. consumer to producer, predefined, but you still would like to test that route. It'll come in the maybe in few minutes time, right? So what we want to do is, we would like to create new route builder. Very simple like that. You simply say from direct greeting, okay, and what you like to do is you like to redirect this to something called mock. So you can simply say to mock, let's say this is mock greeting result. All right, what we are going to do over here is, now our consumer is direct greeting, is going to consume whatever message we send it to it, and it is going to write to mock greeting, which is our producer. Now I'm going to read from our producer over here, and then I'm going to set some expectations to it, and just verify everything is working as expected. All right, so let's just do that. So what we have to do over here, come over here and then say context dot get route definition. Sorry, you're just gonna say get mock endpoint, get mock endpoint, not context, get mock endpoint. Yeah, that's pretty much right. Over here we're gonna say mock colon, what we said over here, greeting result. Okay, so get mock point is another method which is coming from our camel test support class. Let's declare that into a local variable. Okay, and let's just simply call it mock. Now I'm gonna set some expectation before sending the messages to it. And what expectation would I like to set? I like to set mock dot expected message count is 2, because I'm gonna send 2 messages. Yeah, sending 1 and sending 2. You can set very complex expectation as well, like, does it contain this text, does it contain this, has it met this condition, has it done this bit or that. Just for, like, demonstration purposes, I'm simply going to say please check whether or not this particular route has received 2 messages. Okay, not more than that, not less than that, because in every case that would be a failure. If I say I'm sending 2 messages but it's only receiving 1, which means 1 message is disappearing somewhere. If it's receiving 3, again there is a problem, because we are only sending 2 messages. Who is sending the 3rd message? Okay, so we have to very clearly specify our expectation that I am expecting fixed number 2. Okay, you have, like, another set of method which says at least or something like that. If I say expected message count is there, all messages await create consumer expected sending Yeah, if you go back and check like the number of methods, there are few like which says at least these many messages, or maybe maximum these many messages, or something like that. So once we have done that, we gonna keep our existing stuff, which is sending the message, sending body, and after this line towards the end, you are going to ask mock, please check assert is satisfied. Okay, assert is satisfied. So let's just recap what we did. We are sending messages to our endpoint called direct greeting, and using mock we are checking whether or not those messages are coming back. Okay, if I now run this particular test, cool, this is passed, which means we have proven here that okay, if I send two messages, our routes are receiving those two messages, okay, and the conditions are satisfied. If I set 20 for example, just to prove that this really works, okay, if I do that some random number, I'm expecting this test to fail. Okay, as you can see, the spinner is there now because it has a default time of 10 seconds or 15 seconds, which it waits for all the messages to arrive. Now as you can see, our test has failed. Why it has failed? It's saying I expected 20 but I only got 2, which is true because we only sent 2 messages. So which means our assert is not satisfied. So this is how you can mock your endpoints. You can just test it over here in your unit test, and then maybe you can ship it to your clients, or you can put in your XML file, or this is how you keep on building the routes. So far so good. Now let's just move on to the advanced bit, as I promised earlier. Okay, and the advanced bit is called AdviceWith. AdviceWith, as name suggests, right, is basically saying you are testing your routes with some sort of advice. Why do you want to do that? AdviceWith is very useful concept when you like to test your existing routes. What does that mean? You have production ready code, okay, you are not allowed to touch that route. You can't have the flexibility of putting let's say mock at the end, or in the middle, or anywhere. Okay, that's a fixed set of route which you have kind of defined for your application, but you still like to test it, and the only way of testing it, send a message, and there should be a way of consuming the message somewhere, so you can basically verify that message, i.e. the content of that message. Yeah, this is where AdviceWith comes. It is used for testing camel routes that are advised before testing. It basically intercepts sending to endpoints, replaces incoming endpoint with another. You can replace it, right? You can completely replace your greeting with something else, and then you try to send to that particular endpoint. It can be really useful, like when you have some sort of external components, database, messaging, or file system, or whatever. You can replace that bit, and rest of the route can continue. It's really cool stuff. It's just that you have to play with it, but I'm just going to give you very high level information that you have existing route. You can amend that existing route in several ways to test it. Okay, you can take out or replace nodes of the route. You can say, look, I have a A, B, C, D. You can actually say get rid of B. Just assume B is probably writing to some audit table. You don't want to test that, so you can actually replace that at runtime using the test. Okay, you can insert new thing. What it means is, let's say you have a route, you would like to do some sort of wiretapping to it. You AdviceWith allows you to do that as well. That's really cool stuff. Okay, you can mock endpoints too. Okay, let's go back to our IntelliJ and let's try to build something very interesting. So what we can do now is we can create another file. There it is. Okay, let's start from the beginning just to understand. Actually, this is I was playing with earlier. Before you begin testing with AdviceWith, first thing you like to do is you like to override a method called use AdviceWith. Why do you want to do that? Thing is, if you do not do that, Camel will, when you start the test, uh, Camel will start the routes. As soon as it sees like that you are trying to modify a route, it will stop the existing routes and it will try to do the new bit. That can cause so many problems in your application because you wouldn't be able to load the context properly. So this is a way Camel recommends that you return true, so it knows that it doesn't has to stop the routes, but just take the advice and inject it. Okay, let's see if we can read something useful over here. Yeah, as you can see over here, overrides when using AdviceWith and return true. This helps knowing AdviceWith is to be used, and Camel context will not be started before the AdviceWith takes place. This helps by ensuring the which has been properly set up before the Camel context is started. Otherwise, it gets confusing. It starts it, it stops it, and then it try to inject it, and then you can have some unexpected behavior from your application. All right. Let's come back over here. So that's the first thing you will be doing it, and after that I had existing root, hello root, as you noticed before. Okay, so I'm simply going to override this method, create root builder, and return our existing hello root. In our test method, what we have to do, first thing you would like to have to do is you say context that get root definition. So you have to pull the root definition of your root, and that can only be pulled based on the ID, and I already have ID for my root. So if I take you back to our hello root class, as you can see, when we defined our root, we have given ID called greeting, and that's the ID you will be using over here. Okay, so you say context get me the root definition based on this particular ID. Once you got the root, now you can start kind of building your AdviceWith. So you say AdviceWith, which is again provided by the Camel test support class. You pass the root. Okay, so AdviceWith can take over the root, and you pass the context, so it can pull all the necessary information it needs. After that, you will be saying, you know what, I like to do this bit on the existing root and context. What I'm doing over here is I'm saying weave add last. So there are several methods. Let's take a look at the documentation if it makes sense. So this is the documentation for AdviceWith. There are several things you can do. You can replace from with, so you can, as I was saying earlier, you can actually replace the existing root with something new. You can weave by URI. Okay, you can weave by ID. You can weave by toString, by type. You can weave by at the end, or you can do it at first. What is weave over here is, so it's just basically a term they are using to inject something or amend something. Naming is difficult thing. They could have used word amend or edit or whatever, but they decided to use this, which is doing the same thing. So what I am thinking of doing here is I'm saying I have my root, okay, which is simply direct greeting, and it's finishing with another root. This is a producer over here, and it's simply saying by body. What I'm thinking of doing is at the end of this root, I'm saying add another root called mock finish greeting. Just remember, we are not touching our existing root called hello root. What we are simply saying is it's kind of, it looks like continuation from here, like you have from to from finishing over here. It's pretty much like, let's say it is a very much like a continuation of saying here that dot to something xxx. But if I have to do that, I will have to modify existing root. I do not want to do that. So what I'm simply saying is, using the AdviceWith, I'm saying at the end of the root, please add this new root called mock finish greeting. So I can set my expectation. I can check the behavior of the existing root. Really, really, really powerful stuff. Okay, this is amazing. That's exactly what you wanted to achieve right from the beginning. So once I have done this advice, okay, we can minimize that because we are not going to use it. After that, you have to say context start. Now you're ready to start the context. So when camel starts, it knows, okay, you know what, this is the new route, I have to add this thing, so it can see it as a one single route. After that, if you remember, we did get mock endpoint. This time we'll be reading mock finish greeting, which is the new route which we just defined. Mock, I'm going to set the expectation of 1, and I am going to send the message to direct greeting, which is written in the hello route. Okay, and I'm simply sending team, and I'm just making sure it is satisfying. Okay, the condition is satisfied, i.e. it's receiving one message. Let's try to run this. Brilliant. Okay, our condition is satisfied. So what we have learned today, we have learned how to test camel routes using camel test kit, okay, which is over here on the presentation. Okay, and we also looked at camel core. Okay, and we used some basic concept by starting by unit testing, then we did mock testing, and then we did this super advanced use case using AdviceWith. I hope you like the videos. Okay, please subscribe if you have not, and leave me comment at the bottom. Tell me what else would you like to see, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you very much.